I, F27, saw him M32 with his coworker at 2 a.m. in our shower as I came home from a trip early to surprise. He has no idea. It's 6 a.m., I'm drunk, and IDK what to do next. Throwaway for obvious reason. I had taken a trip for a couple of days, and since I had the next couple of days off, including Valentine's Day, I thought I'd surprise him. God, this is so hard to type. My hands are shaking so much that I can barely see the screen. I bought takeout and beers to surprise him, wanting to make a night of it. But before bringing the things inside, I wanted to sneak up on him, maybe yell surprise, or something stupid like that. I unlocked the front door quietly and tiptoed inside. The house was dark except for the faint glow from the upstairs bathroom. At first I thought nothing of it. Maybe he was just showering late. But then I heard it. The low hum of voices, the laughter, the unmistakable sound of wet bodies shifting against the tiled walls. My stomach churned. As I moved up the stairs, the reality of the situation crashed into me like a freight train. Hanging on the bathroom doorknob was a pair of red lace panties. Not mine. The realization punched me square in the chest, and I had to grip the railing to keep myself from collapsing. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip the door open and drag them both out, naked and ashamed, and throw them into the street. Instead, I inched forward and peered into the mirror that hung opposite the transparent shower curtain, and there he was. My boyfriend, my future husband, pinning her against the wet, steamy wall just like he used to do to me. People say you see red when you experience rage like this. I thought it was just a saying. It's not. I saw red, blood red. The world blurred as my fingers clenched into fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. I wanted to tear them apart, but I didn't. I didn't say a word. Was that a mistake? Should I have burst in, ripped the curtain down, and let them see my face twisted in agony and fury? I don't know. I only knew I couldn't let them see me like this, like a fool. I pulled out my phone, snapped a picture of them in the act, and walked out, silent. A ghost in my own home. I barely remember the drive. My knuckles were white against the steering wheel. My foot pressed harder on the accelerator than I should have allowed. I nearly crashed twice, and now I'm here. Sitting in a cheap hotel room, the glow of the neon sign outside flashing against the wall. It's 6 a.m. I'm drunk. I drained an entire bottle of vodka in the last 3 hours, and yet I feel nothing. Nothing except the hollow pit inside me where love used to be. He texted me once. What happened? Did your plane get delayed? Like nothing was wrong. Like he wasn't just inside another woman. Like he didn't just shatter my entire reality into a million irreparable shards. I didn't respond. We were together for 4 years. 4 years. He proposed to me on my birthday. He slid a ring onto my finger and told me he wanted forever. And now I can't even stomach the thought of that ring on my skin. I should be planning my next move. But all I can do is stare at the ceiling and feel the weight of everything pressing down on my chest. The betrayal, the humiliation, the fury. I won't cry. He doesn't deserve my tears. I finally made a decision. I texted my brother, the only person I trust right now. He didn't hesitate. He called me immediately, his voice dripping with rage and concern. "Where are you?" "I'm at a hotel. I'm coming to get you." A breath of relief filled my lungs. My brother has always been my rock. He's the kind of man who would drive through a storm to make sure I was safe. And right now, I needed that more than anything. He's on his way. He's bringing a friend to drive my car while he takes me back to my parents' house, 5 hours away. 5 hours to escape this nightmare, to breathe in air that doesn't reek of betrayal. I won't tell my ex where I am. Let him panic. Let him wonder. But before I leave, I want to make sure he knows. I'm going to text him on Valentine's Day. Tell him to meet me at our favorite restaurant, the one where he proposed to me. I'll dress up, wear the ring, smile at him like I don't know the truth. And then I'll slide a small silver locket across the table. Inside, the picture I took of him and his mistress in the shower. I won't say a word. I'll take off the ring, place it on the table, and walk out. Let him sit there, staring at the image of his own betrayal, knowing he lost me forever. That was the plan. It was solid. It was perfect. It was everything he deserved. But then, at 3 a.m., my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something in my gut told me to. I hesitated, then swiped my thumb across the screen. Hello, at first silence, then a ragged breath. Listen to me, a woman's voice whispered, hoarse and shaking. I don't have much time, but you need to know. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my heart hammering in my chest. My stomach twisted into knots. What the hell was that? Was it her? Or was it something much, much worse? I sat there, gripping my phone so hard my fingers ached. The room felt suddenly smaller, the neon sign outside casting long, flickering shadows across the walls. I replayed the voice in my head, hoarse, urgent, terrified. I don't have much time. But you need to know, click. What was I supposed to do with that? A million possibilities ran through my mind, none of them comforting. Was it her, the woman in my shower, calling to gloat? No, there was no smugness in that voice, only fear. A deep, gut-clenching kind of fear that seeped through the phone and wrapped itself around my throat. I checked the number. No name, no contact info, just a string of digits that meant nothing to me. I tried calling back, straight to voicemail. I swallowed hard and stood up, pacing the room. The alcohol buzz was wearing off, leaving me with a dull headache and a sharper sense of unease. My brother would be here soon. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe it was a prank or a wrong number or just some cruel joke from the universe to remind me that things could always get worse. But something inside me whispered, it's not over yet, and then a knock at the door. I froze, 3 soft raps. Not hurried, not aggressive, but deliberate. I checked the peephole. The hallway was dim, the flickering light at the end casting strange shadows. There was no one there. I waited, my pulse hammering. Was my mind playing tricks on me? Was the exhaustion and alcohol making me paranoid? I exhaled slowly and turned away. Then another knock, this time firmer. Every instinct in my body screamed at me not to open that door, but I did. The hallway was empty. I stepped out cautiously, looking left then right. The hotel was quiet, almost too quiet for a place like this. The kind of quiet that makes your skin prickle. And then I saw it, lying on the floor just outside my door, a small red envelope. I bent down, my fingers trembling as I picked it up. My name was scrawled across the front in messy, hurried handwriting. No stamp, no return address. I swallowed hard and stepped back into the room, locking the door behind me. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely open the envelope. Inside was a single Polaroid, a photo of my car, parked outside this hotel, taken from a distance. And scrawled on the bottom in the same frantic handwriting, "He's not who you think he is." My stomach twisted. I staggered back, clutching the photo, my breath coming fast and shallow. I suddenly felt exposed, like unseen eyes were watching me right now, waiting for my reaction. Was this about my boyfriend? Had this been some long, elaborate lie? Or was this about something else, something bigger than infidelity? I looked at the hotel phone. Should I call the police? But what would I even say? Hi, yes, my cheating fiancé might be involved in something dark and someone is watching me, but I don't actually know anything, my brother. He'd be here soon. I just had to hold on until then. I sat down on the bed, gripping my phone, willing myself to think rationally. And then my phone vibrated again. This time it was his number, my cheating fiancé. I stared at the screen, my breath hitching in my throat. He hadn't called all night, only that one text earlier pretending everything was fine. And now, all of a sudden, he was calling. Something was very wrong. I let it ring. Then a voicemail popped up. With trembling hands, I pressed play. At first, it was just heavy breathing. Then a whisper, "You need to run." A sharp noise like the phone being dropped, a scuffle, a muffled voice in the background, then nothing. The voicemail ended. My blood turned ice cold. I sat frozen, the walls of the hotel room closing in around me, and then my phone vibrated one last time, a single text, too late. The air in the hotel room thickened, pressing down on me like a weight. I stared at the screen, my fingers numb, my pulse hammering so hard it felt like it would burst through my ribs. Too late. 2 words, simple, final. I lurched to my feet, my head spinning from the alcohol, from the fear, from the sheer unreality of this nightmare I'd fallen into. My first instinct was to grab my things and run, but to where? My brother was already on his way. If I left now, I might miss him. And yet staying felt like a death sentence. I forced myself to breathe in and out, trying to think, trying to be rational, but my body wasn't listening. It was in full-blown survival mode, screaming at me to move, to do something. I turned off all the lights in the room and crept toward the window, pressing my back against the wall as I peeked out through the heavy curtains. The parking lot was mostly empty, dimly lit by a handful of buzzing yellow streetlights. My car was still there, parked exactly where I left it, but I wasn't alone. A figure stood at the edge of the lot, half shrouded in darkness. Too far away to make out details, but close enough that I could feel their presence. Watching, waiting. My breath hitched. Whoever they weren't moving. They weren't pacing or looking at a phone or waiting for a ride. They were standing still, facing my hotel window as if they knew I was looking. A chill crawled down my spine. Then, slowly, deliberately, they tilted their head to the side. I jerked away from the window, my heart slamming against my ribs so hard it hurt. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to will myself to think straight. I needed to leave. I grabbed my bag and shoved my phone into my pocket, my hands trembling so violently I could barely zip it up. My fingers fumbled with the lock on the door, but just as I was about to turn the handle, a noise. Not from outside, from inside the room. Something shifted in the darkness just beyond my line of sight. A faint creak like weight pressing against the old carpet. I wasn't alone. My lungs seized. My grip on my bag tightened. I turned my head so slowly I could hear my own pulse pounding in my ears. The bathroom door was open just an inch more than it had been before. The closet door, too. I had checked both when I arrived. I knew I had. The walls of the room felt like they were closing in, the darkness pressing against me like a second skin. My throat was dry. My fingers twitched, itching to grab something, anything to defend myself. Then footsteps, a single step, deliberate, behind me. I spun around, blindly swinging my bag in front of me like a shield. It collided with something solid, knocking it back with a heavy thud. I didn't wait to see who or what it was. I threw myself at the door, yanked it open, and sprinted into the hallway. The dim fluorescent lights flickered above me as I ran, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I took the stairs 2 at a time, nearly tripping over my own feet. The front lobby was empty except for a sleepy-looking clerk behind the desk, but I didn't stop there either. I pushed through the doors and into the cold night air, sucking in sharp, freezing breaths. The parking lot. My car. My hands shook as I fumbled for my keys, yanking them out of my pocket. I pressed the unlock button. The car beeped, the headlights flashing once, and then a figure stepped out from behind it. Not the one from the lot earlier, someone else, closer. Too close. I gasped and staggered back, my heart slamming against my ribs so hard it felt like it might stop altogether. The figure was tall, clad in dark clothes, their face obscured by the shadows. Then a voice. Low, rough, unfamiliar. "You should have stayed inside." I bolted. I didn't think, didn't hesitate. I ran. But before I could even reach the street, arms wrapped around me from behind. A hand clamped over my mouth. The last thing I heard was my own muffled scream before the world tilted sideways and everything went black. I woke to the sensation of movement. My head was pounding, my vision slow to adjust. The world around me was shifting, jostling, like I was inside a moving vehicle. The cold, hard surface beneath me was metal, vibrating with the rumble of an engine. My wrists burned, something rough, tight, zip ties. My ankles too, my mouth dry, sticky duct tape. Panic shot through me, sharp and electric. I thrashed instinctively, my body twisting against the restraints. My breathing turned ragged, frantic. The air was stale, laced with gasoline. A trunk. I was in a trunk. I forced myself to focus, to push down the rising hysteria clawing at my throat. Where was I? How long had I been out? I replayed the last thing I remembered, running, arms grabbing me, a voice. You should have stayed inside, and now I was here. My heart slammed against my ribs. I turned my head, trying to get a sense of space. The trunk was small, but not suffocatingly so. I could move, barely. No emergency latch, no light spilling through the edges. Whoever had taken me had planned this. I tested the zip ties around my wrists, wincing as they bit into my skin. I twisted my hands, trying to find any slack, but they were tight, too tight. The car hit a bump. My body jerked hard against the metal, pain blooming along my shoulder. I squeezed my eyes shut, inhaling through my nose, forcing myself to think. Then I heard it, a voice, muffled, distant, coming from the front of the car. Two people, one male, one female. I strained to listen, pressing my ear against the metal. Not what we agreed. The man's voice was low, tense. A pause. The woman answered, her voice colder. You're getting paid, aren't you? The man exhaled sharply, like he was about to argue but thought better of it. If she dies, it's on you. A sickening chill crawled up my spine. The woman didn't respond. The car slowed. My body shifted again, my head knocking against something hard. My stomach turned with dread. They were stopping. I had seconds, maybe less, before they opened that trunk, before I was dragged out to wherever the hell we were. Do something. Do something now. Adrenaline surged through me, sharpening my senses. I twisted my hands again, ignoring the sting as the zip ties dug in deeper. There had to be a way out, a weakness, something. I felt around with my fingers, blindly searching the floor of the trunk, carpet, metal, then plastic, a seam, a panel. I dug my nails into the groove, prying as hard as I could. It shifted slightly, loose. A spare tire compartment, my pulse spiked. I wedged my fingers deeper, yanking with everything I had just as the car rolled to a full stop. The panel gave way, lifting just enough for me to reach inside. Tools. Metal, something smooth and cylindrical, a tire iron, footsteps outside, voices closer now, the dull click of a car door opening. I grabbed the tire iron and pressed it against my zip ties, using the edge to saw through the plastic. My hands trembled, slick with sweat. My breath came fast, sharp through my nose. A second door opened, then footsteps rounding the car. The trunk latch clicked now. The second the lid lifted, I swung. The tire iron connected with something, someone, a dull, sickening thud, a sharp cry of pain. I didn't hesitate. I kicked hard, throwing my body weight forward, toppling out of the trunk. The cold night air hit me like a slap, but I didn't care. I scrambled to my feet, my zip-tied ankles nearly sending me sprawling. The man I hit was on the ground, groaning. The woman, dark hair, leather jacket, was already reaching for something in her waistband. Gun. I ran. My legs screamed in protest, my bound ankles forcing me into a desperate, stumbling sprint. The ground beneath me was rough, dirt, gravel, uneven terrain. Not a road. Not civilization, a forest. The car had been parked at the edge of thick, looming trees, the shadows between them impenetrable. I didn't think. I dove into the darkness. Branches tore at my skin, snagged my clothes, but I didn't stop. Behind me, the woman cursed. A gunshot rang out deafening in the silence. Too close. I kept running. The night swallowed me whole. My breath came in ragged gasps, my heart beat a deafening roar in my ears. My arms ached, my wrists raw and bloody from the zip ties, but I pushed forward, deeper, faster. The trees blurred around me, endless shadows stretching in every direction. I had no idea where I was going, only that I had to keep moving. Somewhere behind me, a voice called out, low, furious, "You're making this worse for yourself." I didn't stop. I couldn't, because deep down I knew if they caught me I wouldn't get another chance to run. I didn't dare look back, not even for a split second. My breath came in sharp, painful bursts, each step harder than the last as my legs threatened to give out beneath me. The cold night air burned my lungs, but I kept pushing forward. The forest seemed endless, an impenetrable wall of dark trees that mocked my frantic dash. Every crack of a branch underfoot, every rustle of leaves sent a jolt of fear through me, imagining they were right behind me. The voices continued to echo from behind, growing fainter but not fading entirely. The woman's voice was cold, calculating. "Don't let her get away." The man's voice was strained, almost pleading. "This isn't what we agreed. We were supposed to scare her, not—" Another shot rang out, cutting off the rest of his sentence. I stumbled, the rough ground underfoot betraying me, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. The sound of my own heartbeat hammered in my ears as my body protested against the relentless pace. My wrists were raw, bleeding from the zip ties, but I didn't dare slow down to try and free myself. That would be the moment they caught up. I had to outrun them. I darted left, weaving through the trees, praying I wasn't running in circles. My head spun, the world tilting as I tried to orient myself. The sound of footsteps, heavy, deliberate, grew closer. And then it was quiet for a heartbeat. It was almost too quiet. The only sound was the rustling of the leaves above me and the ragged rasp of my breath. I slowed my pace, my eyes darting around. Were they still behind me? Had they given up then? Footsteps. Closer. Too close. A shadow moved just beyond the trees, a figure stepping through the darkness with a fluid, unnerving ease. My pulse spiked. I ducked low, pressing myself into the shadow of the nearest tree, trying to blend into the night. I held my breath, praying they hadn't seen me. The figure stopped, just a few feet away, and I froze, praying they wouldn't turn in my direction. But then, just as quickly as it appeared, the figure moved on, only to stop again. I peeked from behind the trunk of the tree. The man, tall, unshaven, dressed in dark, heavy clothing, was facing away from me, his back to the forest as he scanned the horizon. Then he spoke. "She's close. I can feel it." His voice was low, guttural. His words felt more like a command than an observation. Something about the way he spoke sent a chill through me, deep in my gut. I wasn't dealing with just anyone. These people weren't amateurs. They knew how to hunt. I squeezed my eyes shut, forcing my pulse to slow, trying to think past the terror clouding my thoughts. I had to get away. I had to get a head start before they realized I was still alive. But the air felt thick, suffocating, like even the trees were watching me. And then, a sudden sound. A snap, a twig. I froze. Every muscle in my body went rigid had they heard it. The man spun around, his eyes scanning the trees with unnerving precision. I didn't wait for him to take another step. I bolted. Adrenaline surged through me as I ran, faster than I thought possible, but the pain in my legs was searing, the strain unbearable. My zip-tied wrists were dragging me down. Every step felt like it was costing me everything, but I couldn't stop. I could hear the man behind me now, crashing through the underbrush, gaining. His breath was ragged, strained, but still too close. I can't outrun him. The thought hit me like a cold slap to the face. My throat went dry, panic creeping back into my chest. I needed a plan. I needed something, anything, to give me an edge, and then I saw it. A small break in the trees. A clearing ahead. Maybe, I thought, maybe I can lose him there. I angled my body, pushing harder, my heart a drumbeat in my chest. The clearing was coming closer. I could see the outlines of an old shack in the distance, half collapsed, overgrown with vines, a shelter, a hiding place. I reached it in seconds, my hand hitting the crumbling wood of the shack. I didn't pause to think. I threw myself through the rotting doorway, desperate to escape into the shelter it offered. Inside, the air was thick with dust, the smell of decay suffocating. I crawled behind a pile of broken furniture, trying to make myself as small and invisible as possible. The sound of footsteps grew louder, closer. The man was outside, searching, circling the shack. I could hear him muttering to himself, too low for me to make out the words. Then, suddenly, he stopped. A cold silence fell over the forest. My chest tightened. Then, just as I thought I could breathe again, a new sound reached my ears, a rustling. A shifting in the underbrush somewhere behind me, another figure, not the man. This one was moving stealthily like a shadow, and my blood ran cold when I realized he wasn't alone. The second figure moved into view. This one, smaller, faster, with eyes that gleamed like a predator's in the dim light. My heart dropped. I knew those eyes. No, not him. My brother, he was here. He was one of them. The world spun, everything blurring into a nightmarish haze as the reality of the situation crashed into me. I've been betrayed.